Hello and welcome to Tag Tuesday, in which I discuss the Booktubers Nursery Rhymes book tag. The tag calls for the following. These are some of the nursery rhymes I remember from my childhood, and they each have an interesting theme. So be ready to call on your inner child as we start with prompt number 1. Miss Polly had a dolly who was sick, so she phoned for the doctor to come quick. The doctor came with his bag and his hat, and he knocked at the door with a rat-a-tat-tat. He looked at the dolly and he shook his head and said, Miss Polly, put her straight to bed. He wrote on a paper for a pill. I'll be back in the morning with my bill. Choose a story that has a medical theme or doctor as the protagonist. For this prompt, I've chosen Madame Bovary by Gustave Flaubert, in which Emma marries Charles Bovary, a country doctor. Emma Bovary is beautiful and bored, trapped in her marriage to a mediocre doctor and stifled by the banality of provincial life. An ardent devourer of sentimental novels, she longs for passion and seeks escape in fantasies of high romance, in voracious spending, and eventually in adultery. But even her affairs bring her disappointment, and when real life continues to fail to live up to her romantic expectations, the consequences are devastating. Flaubert's erotically charged and psychologically acute portrait of Emma Bovary caused a moral outcry on its publication in 1857. It was deemed so lifelike that many women claimed they were the model for his heroine, but Flaubert insisted, Madame Bovary, c'est moi. Prompt number 2. Goosey gander, whither shall I wander? Upstairs and downstairs, and in my lady's chamber. Choose a story that has a love affair as its main theme. For this prompt, I have chosen The Romance of Casanova by Richard Aldington. In spite of his reputation as a great lover and seducer of women, Casanova met his match in the beautiful, strong-minded Henriette, who embarked with Casanova on a tempestuous love affair, but eventually threw him over because she realized how shallow and unreliable he would be as a husband. Casanova, who was truly in love with Henriette, was devastated at first, but later realized that she had estimated his character correctly. But for Casanova, she would always remain as the love of his life. Prompt number 3. Little Miss Muffet sat on a tuffet, eating her curds and whey. Along came a spider, who sat down beside her and frightened Miss Muffet away. Choose a story that has a scary theme or character in it. For this prompt, I've chosen The Premature Burial by Edgar Allan Poe. The thought of being buried alive is enough to chill the blood of anyone. In The Premature Burial, the first-person unnamed narrator describes his nearly crippling phobia of being buried alive. He's suffering from a condition which makes him prone to slipping into a trance state of unconsciousness, a disease that grew progressively worse over time. He became obsessed with the idea that he would fall into such a state while away from home, and that his state would be mistaken for death. He extracts promises from his friends that they will not bury him prematurely, refuses to leave his home, and builds an elaborate tomb with equipment allowing him to signal for help in case he should awaken after death. One day he awakens from sleep only to discover that he is entombed, but not in his own elaborate tomb. He cries out in terror. Prompt number 4. Bar black sheep, have you any wool? Yes sir, 3 bags full. Choose a story that causes you to go wool gathering, i.e. a book that has fantasy at its heart. For this prompt, I've chosen Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, together with Through the Looking Glass by Lewis Carrol. In these two works, Carrol employs complex textures of mathematical, linguistic and philosophical jokes. Alice's encounters with the White Rabbit, the Cheshire Cat, the King and Queen of Hearts, the Mad Hatter, Tweedledum and Tweedledee and many other extraordinary characters have made them masterpieces of carefree nonsense, which appeal to children, yet they also appeal to adults on a quite different level. Layers of satire, allusion and symbolism about Victorian culture and politics, as well as revelations about the intricate subconscious problems of their author, add to their fascination and make them almost impossible to classify, as Carrol achieved an extraordinary level of sophistication. Prompt number 5. Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty Dumpty together again. Choose a story that has unrequited love and in which the protagonist is left with a broken heart. For this prompt I've chosen The Way We Live Now by Anthony Trollope, in which Marie Melmotte is left with a broken heart after the false-hearted swine Sir Felix Carberry, who said he loved her and promised to marry her, loses his nerve and abandons her. Prompt number 6. Ring a ring of roses, a pocket full of posies, a tissue, we all fall down. Choose a story in which the main character comes to a tragic end. For this prompt I've chosen Macbeth by William Shakespeare. Shakespeare's Macbeth is one of the greatest tragic dramas the world has known. Macbeth himself, a brave warrior, is fatally impelled by supernatural forces, by his proud wife and by his own burgeoning ambition. As he embarks on his murderous course to gain and retain the crown of Scotland, we see the appalling emotional and psychological effects on both Lady Macbeth and himself. The cruel ironies of their destiny are conveyed in poetry of unsurpassed power. I'm always left with the feeling that this tragedy could have been avoided if he had been patient and ignored his wife's murderous insinuations. That he did not, therein lies the tragedy that led to his downfall. Prompt number 7. The itsy bitsy spider went up the water spout. Down came the rain and washed the spider out. Up came the sun and dried up all the rain, and the itsy bitsy spider went up the spout again. Choose a story in which the protagonist tried again after failing the first time. Gabriel Oak wanted to marry Bathsheba Everdeen in Far From the Madding Crowd by Thomas Hardy, but was initially turned down. Subsequently he tried again and was accepted. Independent and spirited Bathsheba Everdeen has come to Wetherby to take up her position as a farmer on the largest estate in the area. Her bold presence draws 3 very different suitors: the gentleman farmer Boldwood, soldier seducer Sergeant Troy, and the devoted shepherd Gabriel Oak. Each, in contrasting ways, unsettles her decisions and complicates her life, and tragedy ensues, threatening the stability of the whole community. The first of his works, set in the fictional county of Wessex, Hardy's novel of swift passion and slow courtship, is imbued with his evocative descriptions of rural life and landscapes, and with unflinching honesty about sexual relationships. Unusually for Hardy, he brings about a conventional happy ending which brings the novel to a satisfying conclusion when Oak obtains his desired end of marrying Bathsheba. Prompt number 8. Mary, Mary, quite contrary, how does your garden grow, with silver bells and cockle shells and pretty maids all in a row? Choose a story that has a contrary character in it. For this prompt I've chosen Emily Wharton Lopez in The Prime Minister by Anthony Trollope. Although Emily loves Arthur Fletcher, she ups and marries Ferdinand Lopez, who, although he initially loves her, makes himself odious to her, and after he kills himself she goes into deep mourning for a man she actually ended up detesting. In spite of all that has taken place, Arthur Fletcher still loves her and wants her to be his wife, but she thinks it is necessary for her to punish herself to atone for the mistakes she has made in rejecting Fletcher and marrying Lopez. But, in fact, she's acting worse now by her foolish and self-imposed deep mourning than she did before. Her contrary behaviour is exasperating to read about, but Fletcher bears with her foolishness patiently and wins her in the end. Good luck with that. Prompt number 9. Old King Cole was a merry old soul, and a merry old soul was he. He called for his pipe, and he called for his bowl, and he called for his fiddlers 3. Choose a story that makes you merry. For this prompt I've chosen The Code of the Woosters by P.G. Wodehouse. Bertie Wooster is a fatuous idiot and thinks he's smarter than he really is, but for all that he is a likeable soul without an ounce of nastiness in him. He tries his best to help out his friends and to use his resources to aid them whenever necessary. He's generous with his time, money and resources, and is always willing to enlist the greater brain power of his manservant Jeeves to assist his friends. Taken for what it is, a light-hearted romp through Edwardian England, it is an entertaining and happy book and puts a smile on your face. Prompt number 10. Oranges and lemons, say the bells of St Clements. You owe me 5 farthings, say the bells of St Martin's. When will you pay me, say the bells of Old Bailey. When I get rich, say the bells of Shoreditch. When will that be, say the bells of Stepney. I'm sure I don't know, says the great bell of Bow. Choose a story that is set in London. For this prompt I've chosen Liza of Lambeth, a vividly realistic portrait of working class London life by W. Somerset Maugham. Lambeth is a district in the East End of London in which Maugham worked as a midwife during his time as a medical student. Down among the drab slums of Lambeth, 18-year-old Liza is the darling of Vere Street. Vibrant and bewitching, she is adored by the steady Lord Tom, but then Liza meets Jim Blackstone, charming and worldly, new to the area and married. Soon the streets are wise to their passionate affair, and Liza's fall from grace is fast and fatal. Everyone with a Booktube channel is automatically tagged to do any and every tag, including this one.